Welcome to Home Stories. When buying a home, there's always a story. Heartwarming stories, crazy stories, stories where dreams came true, and stories where lessons were learned. And now, your host for Home Stories, Ronnie Lobb.
Hello. Welcome everyone to our very first podcast for Home Stories. My guest here today is Kari Webster.
Hello.
Who is with iPro Realty Network. And I just invited Kari to come on the fly because we have not podcasted before. So we're just, I guess, bear with us because here we are. Here we go.
All right.
And we've got stuff to talk about. And I guess we'd love to know what you guys think as we're talking about this today too, because this is brand new, kind of a piloting thing, and we'll have discussions and we'll have different guests on Home Stories to hear their stories. And we're going to hear from Kari today. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. So thank you, Kari, for coming in and joining me when I don't know what we're doing yet with this.
I'm excited. It will be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
I do too. Well, thank you. So Home Stories, just quickly as an intro. These are stories from people and we're going to kind of explore people who have bought homes, who have owned homes, what that experience was like, who've sold homes and, bought and sold multiple times. Kari is in, I'm excited to have Kari here because she has bought and sold. She's done some investment, she's done some relocating, and she helps people buy and sell real estate in the meantime. So she's got that perspective. But today we're going to hear her story. So I'm really excited to dive into that and see what this experience was.
Okay, cool.
So I guess just like, if you don't mind, give us a brief overview. Where did you start? Where was the first home that you bought? What did you do before you came to St. George? And when did you ultimately land here?
Okay, so 20 years of history here.
Yeah. Brief.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I first bought in Syracuse. My husband and I were getting married, and I did not want to rent. I have a family that have been in developing property and subdivisions, and so I knew that renting was not an option. We were going to do what we can. I had a grandmother that left us some money, so we were able to put down, I think it was only a 5% down, and we purchased a home that was almost in foreclosure, so it was a good deal, but it wasn't in foreclosure, so we didn't have to jump through those hoops. But
so 20 years ago, like 2003. Okay.
Yep, in Syracuse, Utah.
Oh,
so,
right.
Out there in the boony farmland. So we purchased our first. It was a little tri-level, great home, cute neighborhood, and loved it. We were there 7 years and then realized I needed more space with the kids. The living room area was just really squishy. I wanted some open spaces, and so we decided to look around. We kept our other home, our first that home, and then was able to put down our second home with another. I think we actually pulled out a HELOC and then was able to put down on that one and keep our first home.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask what did you do with the first home? You kept it? Was it vacation? Did you rent it out?
Yes, we rented it out as an investment home. It was only about a block away from our second home, and so we were able to tend to it and come and watch over it. My husband did a lot of the yard work. Well, we all did a lot of the yard work in between every renter, and just made sure it was kept up and that it was in good condition. So we had that for a good 10 years and lived in our second home in Syracuse. And then in 2018, just recently, close to recently, we looked at getting a place in St. George. Mm-hmm. And so we sold our rental and bought a rental in St. George to kind of start looking at purchasing down there. Yep. And then my husband's job was looking at moving his position or starting up more of the company down in southern Utah. So that whole area, because he does leak detection on pools. Mm-hmm. would hopefully grow for what he needed to do, because there's a lot of pools down here more than up north.
Yeah.
So we just looked at getting a rental, and so we sold this first home in Syracuse and got a rental down here in St. George. We used it a little bit, but then decided we wanted to just rent it out and it wasn't a vacation area where we could do it nightly rentals. So we rented it out long term. And then a year after we had it, we decided we wanted to move, and then made the move to St. George.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So, and bought our own home. That first rental was going to be something that we were going to live in until we found a place, but I didn't feel comfortable with the neighborhood. My biggest thing was the location and having the kids be able to get to school and close by, and like a neighborhood that's safe. And that first rental wasn't something that looked appealing for that. And so I started to look around, and we found a home in Little Valley.
Okay.
So,
oh, cool. Little Valley. That's
sorry.
Oh, you're good. No, I think that was what we were told over and over again when we were moving here, was definitely take a look at Little Valley. So, yeah, cool. So can I, how long did you look, like how familiar did you feel like you had to get with the area before you were comfortable knowing what location you wanted to buy in?
Mostly just asking around. I didn't have a whole lot of time when we came to drive around as much. And even as a realtor, I knew certain areas and stuff just from asking around other realtors, other people in the area that I knew of, and asking their opinion. And then I drove somewhat, but I think I just fell in love with the Little Valley area, because Syracuse was a lot like that. It had some farming around it. Like in Little Valley, we have a little street full of cows and horses, and that was just kind of like our same backyard in Syracuse. So
okay. Oh,
so
cool.
it felt like home. And I think just having like with the recreation and the parks close that they could walk to is where I decided it. So it didn't take too long, but mostly just by asking.
Yeah.
Not driving. Mm-hmm.
So from the time that you bought your first rental here, have you been considering, were you considering and kind of looking around where you might consider for like a year or so before you moved, or?
Yeah, it was a year, because we bought our rental in 2018, and then we bought our house in 2019.
Okay.
So
cool.
it was a good year. Yeah, and I think it just meant more to have that rental, because it was another thing that we wanted to be close to be able to watch and look over and keep as our own property investment, instead of having to hire a property manager to take care of it. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So can I ask about like home ownership? What made you decide? Because you said when you very first started, like you knew that renting wasn't a thing. You had to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
What had you thinking that that's the way you wanted it to be?
I think just adding up all of the rent, I'm kind of a penny pincher. Mm-hmm. And if I added all that up, I would get crazy that it's pretty much, I won't ever get that return in investment. Mm-hmm. And it's gone to the owner, and that I don't see any of it again. If you add it all up, it would be enough for a down payment anyways. And so I would almost prefer to like stay with my parents' bedroom or basement or something till I can get a down payment, or if I didn't have help from my grandma, something that would get you, or that, there is other options. So I think that's why I just knew that renting, even if you're there 2 years, I think that that's the better option than 2 years of rent.
Oh, cool. So can I ask, did you have any headaches after buying, or did you bought the home, you took care of the yard, maintained it, and everything was great? Or did you, in any of these homes that you bought, did you run into any like real, oh crap, we bought a lemon kind of issue, or did everything just flow well?
For the most part, I think I think it flowed well, just because I have a positive attitude and looking at like things will work out. But the first home was definitely a fixer-upper kind of a situation. We had to do a lot of yard work, take down some trees. And when you're young, you have time and energy to do that thing. So it didn't bother us. We were just more excited to be in a home that we could call our own, put our time and effort into. And then when we sold it, it was double the price. So that's kind of why it didn't bother me. But then the other rental has been an HOA, so we haven't had any issues with that. Just picking the right renter has been the task on that, and trying to figure out, a good screening process along with like how things are working in their life and stuff. So I think that was good. This last home, we did buy it as a builder that kind of did it quickly and cheaply, just to do it as a quick build so that they could get their equity and be able to build again. And so that was a little harder because that was a higher end or home that we thought the quality should have been up to speed and the pricing. So I think we're replacing a lot, and it's kind of a struggle. I don't think it's going to be our forever home for sure, because I don't want to continue to replace stuff on a 3-year home.
Yeah. So did you know when you were buying that home, did you know all of the things that, like, did you anticipate what you would have to fix, or have you had some surprises after closing and realizing maybe you've got a bigger project than what you thought?
I think there was definitely some surprises. When we first went, we were all in la la land and thought the house is perfect and great. And then the second time we went, we were like, wait a minute, what's this? And, like when you do your inspection, they tried to hide this leak that was on the water heater, and they locked the door and wouldn't let us in, or the realtor in. And we found out after our inspection date was over. And so that was kind of a red flag. But I think I was still at like the timeline of when the kids needed to be in school. I wasn't going to go find another place. We were in the middle of it and needed to close by August 12th or something. And I think we finally closed by August 1st. So,
yeah.
But afterwards, getting in there, my husband's been not happy with some of the stuff. He's replaced a lot of the toilets, like the fixtures, things that were just a very cheap brand and won't last with this hard water down here. Mm-hmm. And he's had to, I don't know if you would think it's just not a necessary thing, but just upgrades that he prefers things to be a little bit nicer in that area. So,
yeah. Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. The one that we are in right now, I think our inspector was like this. He was this great inspector who kind of walked us through what to look for in St. George, because we moved from a colder area for sure. And so, a lot of what I was concerned about was, heating and air and all of that stuff. And when he was walking us through, I don't know what they were doing. They had blocked off, and see, here's where I'm like, I don't know all of the correct terms for this, but there's basically this ventilation that lets moisture and stuff out of the house. And on the outside of it, they had capped that off because it started leaking and they didn't want it to leak. And so they capped it so it didn't leak. And so what happened was moisture built up inside the attic, and a lot of the way blown in insulation. They had filled the whole attic with blown in insulation, like really insulated it well. We were super excited about that. But when the inspector went in and saw it, he noticed that was blocked off. So he went up to the attic to check, and he had his little tool that, checks moisture, and way inside, tons of that blown in insulation was
covered
soaked.
in mold.
No, it wasn't.
Just wet.
Thankfully, it was not covered in mold. So we did another inspection where we had them inspect for mold, and fortunately there was no mold in there. It was just like super saturated in moisture. And so he said, what we needed to do was uncap it, let it dry out for a couple of days, and then see, what it was at. But, I've bought and sold, and we even did construction on some. And that was one of those things I never, ever would have anticipated something like that being an issue. I never would have even thought to look. And the caps that were on this little hose on the outside, they were like this, 1.5 inch round caps. I just never would have thought to look at it. So that's one of those things where, you get in there and realize there's just, just issues.
Right.
Just issues that you didn't anticipate. You think to look for, electrical, plumbing, and all of that stuff. For us, that was a really new one. And that was also, after 20 years of buying and selling real estate. So it's nuts. So
Well, I did work with I did a marketing with a home inspection company, and I've seen so many things after that. Like I really learned things to look for, but something new every time, like that I would never known. And I think I feel bad for the people in this market since they are buying a as is home, and they don't really get to see what their costs could be on things where. When you're in that buying process and you do the home inspection, you can kind of start getting bids and seeing where you're going to be on a whole new roof or a whole new water damage or, a bunch of things. And a lot of people don't have that option because there's just not a lot of houses on the market. So they have to.
This is the house.
Yeah.
This is the house and it suits.
Risk.
You buy the house.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think they're a little hard to get a good house and feel good about like everything without having to do the inspection for sure.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten that you worked for inspection because I'm sitting here thinking, man, you're buying all of these homes and like no real anticipated issues, and maybe it's probably because you had all that experience and home inspectors and stuff who could tell you what those things were.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it helps to be educated, or if not, home inspection's not that expensive, to have it done. Even if you decide not to buy the house, it's worth it in the long run, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
And some people will say, well, I'll just go and look through things. But if you don't have a professional to kind of give you an idea of the pricing that it would fix and all that, I think it's definitely a higher risk market right now.
Yeah. And I know that with my last experience, I would have been that person, because really you kind of, you get into this enough, you buy and sell enough and you think, oh, I know what to look for.
Yeah.
Like I can go do this. And I decided, because I do appreciate professionals, that I just went, I guess like, let's still get a home inspection. Let's let someone else take a look at it.
Yeah.
And the things they caught, I just went, no, in like all of our experience and everything, for the most part, we didn't have the right tools. We didn't have all of the detectors that could, pick up heat and moisture and stuff in the walls. Everything we would have done would have been visual.
Right.
And that would have been that.
Yeah.
And who knows, we could have ended up with a massive mold problem for all I know.
Yeah.
But fortunately,
I think water and mold is like the biggest hidden things in houses that you don't see, and they can be really bad with sicknesses later on. You may not notice until for a long time that you have allergies all the time or other symptoms start coming up. And kids, I think, are more like sensitive, I guess I should say, to it, and so they can get sick over the littlest things, and it could be just your house, something in your house or in your water, or so it does pay to get it inspected and checked out for sure. Yeah,
that's true. So, can I ask how like the transition went with kids and everything like that?
Sure.
Were they excited to move here, or was it kind of a, what are you doing to me?
That was my biggest fear, is have them say, it's all because of you. If it's all because we moved here. Like, I just did not want to hear those words. And thankfully we've been here a year and a half and they've been happy as ever. And it's getting them even harder to go back up north because they don't want to leave their friends on the weekends, so they were really good at transitioning. I think just finding what they like to do was the best and easiest way to get them friends, after school programs and stuff, and getting them involved and stuff like that, because then they were able to find friends that weren't just the neighbors or anybody else that's doing the same thing that they like to do. So I think that was a big helper, and I think they've really liked the schools and the teachers, and I think it's been really good, even though COVID was a little, side note in this last year, and everything being canceled and stuff, and which it made it good that we had this new house to be together in and work through the school like systems online, and just it made it kind of fun that we're down here instead of out in the cold and miserable. So.
Where like when it was time to hunker down, you could still at least go outside and enjoy things that were going on out there.
That was my way of schooling, is like I would be like, an hour or two, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a bike ride. Let's go out and do a hike. Like I just hurried and get what they had to get done, and then we would be out playing most of the day.
Oh, cool.
So that's why I do love St. George's, just all the outdoor recreation. That's one of the things that brought down. I think everybody, came for the sun and the recreations and the things you can do around here, but there's a lot of other factors that brought us, and I think it's been a good move for sure.
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I'll say I hear people who come here and they ask me a lot, like, there's mountain biking and outdoor recreation and stuff like that, but what do you do? Can I ask what you do with your kids, and what do they like to do here?
Yeah, when I can get them out, they like to hike. They might gripe about it, but once I get them out, they love it.
When they're running around climbing rocks and everything.
Yeah. They think, oh, it's such a chore, and mom has to always exercise, and they're like, oh, dragging. And then once I get them out, they love it, and I have to keep up with them and try to like chase them down because they're just playing everywhere. And so hiking's a big thing. I mountain bike, but they haven't really taken into that yet. They've kind of played around with it, but it's pretty hard on them, I guess. Better bikes would be helpful. I think if I got them some better bikes, that definitely would help. And we also just like boating. We take our boat out to Sand Hollow and Quail Creek and Lake Palasoon and Mead. It's just a lot of that fun stuff to do. We like to camp and go outdoors anywhere, really. I think that's just our main theme for the weekend. We try to get out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that St. George has all of that. And so much of it is like staying preserved that way, even though things continue being built, that they're not being built over,
Right.
they're kind of being built around so that the recreation in St. George can stay recreational.
Yeah. There has been, when we first moved in Little Valley, there was a really nice bike hill and like little bunny jumps and everything, and they already built over them. So there's been like that where I'm like, dang it. So we still have, but as long as like the national parks and the state parks and stuff like hold on to some of that, then it would be great. It's a good spot for sure.
Oh, very cool. I think here, my kids do sometimes get sick of the sand.
Yeah.
That's what I hear about is, we're going in more sand. And so this past year, I've just really started venturing out and going, okay, where can we go that's not purely sand, that's more petrified cliffs and stuff like that, instead of the sandy cliffs that's going to get stuck in people's shoes. I'm not the one who's got the sand in the shoes issue. I don't care if my shoes fill up with sand and I shake it out, or even if it gets in the car. But what we ended up doing this last week for Easter was we went park hopping.
Oh.
St. George has a ton of parks.
Yes.
And we picked our one central location, our park, and we tried to just walk to where we were going to go from. So we went from one park to the next, and I think the ice cream trucks followed us.
Yeah.
And I should have just find out, like, what are the ice cream truck routes? Maybe they've picked another park that we should have been hopping to. And we didn't know about it yet. But yeah, they were at every park that we went to.
That's a good idea. I don't know if I would want to walk to each of them, but there is so many parks that my kids haven't even touched or seen or, heard of. And so we got to like make the list and check everything off the box.
That's right. Do like a little park scavenger hunt and, find something at each of the parks and geocaching and stuff. And there's geocaching along the way. So we did like this little fun city tour, which I have not done in St. George at all. So it was, a city tour, and we included a couple of bakeries. Well, it wasn't just ice creams and treats, but we decided since we were walking, it was okay to get, extra treats. But we've seen cute little, there's the Farmstead Bakery that had just opened up. So we went over there, and then, ice cream trucks and all of that. And geocaching, we had a full day, and it was me and my older kids, like early teens and preteens. And we came home everyone thought it was the best thing that we could have done with our whole Easter break. And it was way different than what we usually do. And I'm a big national parks person. And I was kind of disappointed that I wasn't standing on top of Angel's Landing at Easter, because that's
the usual.
That's the usual. That's where I like to be. And this was just one of those other ideas, was just totally out of the blue, and it was fun and lovely and
cool.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. Yeah, stay home staycations are the best.
Yeah, staycations are the best. Yeah, so it was fun.
COVID gave us that appreciation.
That's right.
That for sure
opened our eyes to some other ideas. We were forced to get a little more creative than what we had been previously. So yeah. Well, thank you, Kari. I appreciate you coming and being on this very first podcast. And for all of you who were listening or listen later, we would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And if you want to be on the podcast and share your story, please message me through any of the platforms that this is on. And I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronnie. It was awesome.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Home Stories, stories about the experience of home buying and ownership. Ronnie Lobb is a loan originator with Altius Mortgage, NMLS number 1522411. For more information or to share your home story, go to homestoriespodcast.com. This has been a production from a podcast studio.